Shipping delays in Singapore have more than doubled, hit by a shortage of ships, containers and congestion at ports. And this could translate into higher prices for consumers amid an impending supply chain crisis. Well, it all started 2 weeks ago with US President Joe Biden slapping on tariffs on a variety of Chinese imports. Products like electric vehicle batteries and computer chips will face levies of up to 4 times the current amount. In response, Chinese exporters are now in a mad rush to beat these looming trade restrictions. Average container prices in China, which were already on an uptrend, have spiked even further by 88% in the last 2 months. Now, these ships will typically take routes like this one through the Strait of Malacca, where they will dock in Singapore. Now, the problem is that the sheer volume of vessels has gone up, and that's causing congestion at the ports. Well, currently it takes about 7 days for each vessel to be berthed instead of 1 to 2 days previously. So far this month, Singapore's port has already received around 1,000 ships compared to just over 600 in April. One analyst says port congestion is at an all-time high.
There isn't a lot of spare capacity available to accommodate the increase in volumes. And while there is some additional capacity at Tuas Port, this will only be available at the end of the year. And port users will therefore need to build in delays to their cargo movements and forecasts in the next few months.
And that is just the tip of the iceberg. As vessels remain at sea for longer periods of time, exporting countries are facing a shortage of ships and container equipment. For freight forwarders of big products like cars, the price to ship their goods has jumped threefold. So this means that they have to either absorb costs or pass them to consumers.
The vessel is too full to accommodate our cargo. It's too full. They are over tonnage because China, their cargo loading is so much that they already took up, I think, most of the space in the vessel. So we are left with very little. So those little space left. So if we want, they can take 1 or 2, not much. So we only prioritize those that are very urgent to ship.
Well, analysts say the situation could last for months as it also affects neighbouring ports in ASEAN. Well, one analyst says some sectors in Singapore are expected to come off worse from this supply chain disruption. For instance, firms in the manufacturing industry, especially those involved in producing heavy goods like consumer electronics or electric vehicles. And that's because these manufacturers typically rely on sea freight to send and receive the raw materials needed to produce their products. E-commerce firms could also take a hit. Those selling larger household items like furniture are expected to face delays, while those selling smaller items may have to turn to costlier ways to make sure their products reach customers.
One alternative is for vendors or consumers to switch from sea freight to air freight, but that will actually increase the cost. Air freight normally costs about 5 to 20 times more than sea freight, depending on the weight as well as the size configurations. I think air freight cannot be a substitute for, or maybe for smaller parcels, it's still possible, but as a general substitute, I think sea freight is here to stay. We still need the maritime transportation.
An economist also says the ongoing ship and container crunch, coupled with higher growth momentum, are likely to put upward pressure on inflation in Singapore. While prices were expected to ease in the second half of this year, he notes that outlook has become more uncertain.
We will also likely see higher food prices and higher transport prices, led by higher energy prices in the foreseeable future. And more importantly as well, commodity prices will start to rise, especially when Chinese trade starts to accelerate in its activities into the rest of this year.